Pleased to be joined by the GM and head coach of the Kamloops Blazers, Shaun Clouston. Shaun, first of all, let's start in the present. The preseason is underway as we speak right now for the Kamloops Blazers. The regular season is just over a week away. Just give me a sense on how everybody's feeling ahead of the start of a new season in Kamloops.
Yeah, I think in general, it's always an exciting time of the year. Players have worked hard in the summer. Some guys are, trying to make the team. Some guys are optimistic, hopeful they can take another step and take on, more responsibility, a bigger role. You kind of go from 0 to 100. The few days before camp, you're just kind of waiting and you've got everything prepped, and you hope that you've checked all the boxes, and then you have 70 or 80 kids come in, and it's a lot. This point is a little bit different, where you've got a pretty good idea of what the team's going to look like, and maybe you have a couple of decisions left, as far as the final roster is concerned, and you want to keep working on that evaluation, and we've got a couple more games to do that.
I want to ask you a little bit about last year, but kind of as a lead into this year. Obviously, with the Blazers, hosting the Memorial Cup last year and the fanfare that came with that, and just the experience that your players and the community got to have as part of that. I want to ask you about maybe some of the younger guys that were depth players, even black aces as part of that Memorial Cup team. And you look at the number of veterans that have the opportunity to potentially go and play pro this year from that squad. But I want to ask you about some of the younger guys taking that experience of playing in a high pressure tournament in the Memorial Cup and on a national stage, and being able to carry that experience into this year in their quest, I guess, to vie for a bigger role on your team.
Yeah, I think it was an incredible opportunity. I think it was a lifetime experience the players will remember. I think overall it was a real positive year. We knew we had some things to do. We worked real hard, and as far as roster moves, and we did a lot of what we wanted to do. We didn't have the final result that we were looking for, but real proud of our group. As far as this year goes, I think you mentioned returning players. There's players that played key roles that are still here, and I think those guys so far have done an excellent job of learning from the experience and leading the way early on here. I think that there's a number of players we were able to bring in, a lot of young players. They got in a little bit of playoff action or none, but we're at least around watching and practicing and observing. So I think that's valuable for those guys. We're thankful to have a group of guys returning. I think that we were able to hang on to some players, and I think that'll prove really valuable early on in the season here and moving forward. Players like Fraser Minton, Dylan Sonor, Emmett Finney, Ryan Michael. We've got two 19-year-old goalies right now. So I think that's going to be really, really important in the transition. We've got a lot of young players. It's going to be a very different looking roster as far as the age groups are concerned. But I think those older players that have been with us for a year or 2 or 3 years are going to be extremely important for us to continue to move forward.
The NHL draft came around in July, and Shaun, I know we heard a lot of talk, and we saw a lot of just experience for Connor Levis, right? Getting to play in the top prospects game, and he hears his name called by the Winnipeg Jets. But you also had Emmett Finney, right? A guy that really came on in the second half of the season, and perhaps used that national stage to help springboard himself to an NHL draft pick by the Detroit Red Wings. Just tell me a little bit about just those two players. I mean, and in Emmett's case, just how hard he's worked to kind of make a name for himself versus, having been, been in a situation like Connor where he was on lists and got to be in top prospects games and so on and so forth.
Yeah, I think it's a real good example for players starting their Western League career right now. I don't think Emmett scored a goal at 16. He kind of just kept working and kind of joked he changed his number coming into last year because he didn't score any goals. I think that was one of the reasons why he changed his number last year. Um, you know, I mean, it's a great thing to be drafted. So I mean, both guys, right? So they both deserved it. They're both good young players with with lots of potential. But I think in Emmett's case, it's a great example. Some of the younger players that it's not always a straight path. It's not always right to the top. And I think in Emmett's case, what the NHL scouts saw was the improvement piece. He continued to get better, and even though he wasn't in a top six role, he was still effective. So it's all about projection, and I think that in Emmett's case, that's what they saw. They saw a player that was continuously getting better and projected high. So, for both those guys, they're off to camp now, and it's always nice to have players attend camps, get drafted. I think it's good for younger players coming in and looking to those guys as an example. It's great to have a number of players that have that goal in mind of signing an NHL contract, being a pro, and so those guys will be really important for us this year.
You touched on it briefly with your two 19-year-old goaltenders, Ernst and Matthew Keeper, who came over from Regina. But also, your defense, your returning defenseman. I mean, you look at, the likes of Logan Barros, who's just been so steady for you. And then younger guys like Ryan Michael and Brunick, and, the list goes on, right? When you look at your defense core, I mean, how key are those three guys in particular going to be in kind of helping lead the way and lock things down in your defensive zone?
I think, if you talk to, hockey people, scouts and GMs, I mean, you usually want to start with your goaltending and your back end and build out from there. So I think that, we're in a pretty good spot with our goaltending for sure. You mentioned the returning players. Obviously, those guys will need to take a step up in the lineup, and they'll see some more minutes and some more responsibilities as far as matches, as far as specialty teams. We've been impressed with both of our imports. So I think that with Kochi and with Volkvest, they appear right now. I mean, there's always some transition to different size ice and different culture, but both those players look like they're ready to play in the Western Hockey League. So with the talent and the skill level that we graduated, we probably are going to have to really rely on kind of defense first mentality and a real team first mentality in order to have success this year.
My last one for you, Shaun, is about your outgoing captain, Logan Stankoven, who, of course, hometown kid, right? Dallas Stars draft pick. More so than just what he was able to. What he was able to produce on the ice, right? Just a real dynamic player. But as you move forward now into kind of, for lack of a better term, a new era in Blazer history, what are some of the things that Logan's kind of legacy as a leader, as a captain, as a hometown kid will carry forward here as the Blazers continue forward?
Yeah, there's lots of things that come to mind. Probably the number one thing, and I think people don't think about or they don't realize is just how much he put into his game and how hard he worked. So, he was, we have an award, most dedicated player and he's won that award multiple times. And we have a net on the other side of the ice with platform to shoot off of. He's over there all the time. He trains like crazy. So, a lot of times you just see the talent and you see the dynamic player on the ice, the goal scorer. And what people don't realize is just how much, he's put into where he is right now. I mean, he's really, really worked. And I think that's good. That's going to be important for us moving forward. So if you talk about a legacy, the players that played with him and, watched him, they know that it wasn't a fluke. From an early age, he was really dedicated and committed to the game of hockey and his game and his development. And he's really worked very hard for and that's why he's where he's at. So that's a great example. If you want to be successful, you really got to put a lot of effort and time into it. So he's gonna leave that legacy behind for sure.